memory.
That's all right. Happy to help.
Thanks. Even though it's against your point. But anyways, Adam Smith talked about capitalism. But he also said that it cannot go unregulated. You know, it has to be regulated, or else, like you said, it will become a monopoly. It will destroy the competition. For example, my company, what we do is we do advertising for small businesses. And we make a good amount of money off of it. But, you know, we're to the point where we have so many clients that other businesses can't compete. But also, if they actually truly wanted to surpass us, they don't have to look that far. They just have to look for something that will please their clients. The way we did it originally was providing high-end products at a cheaper cost. And we found ways to reduce those costs. And to prosper in a capitalistic society, you've got to innovate. You've got to find ways to do things that couldn't be done before. That's how we won the space race.
Didn't actually win the space race, by the way.
Well, sorry, the moon race. I apologize.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what I would say is, first off, I really disagree with you that capitalism doesn't do everything we say. It does, and it's a rapacious system. I say it's a rapacious system that spreads slavery and destruction and oppression, and it clearly does that.
Oh yeah, of course.
So this is what I would say to you. So there are two economic terms. One is an economy of scale. Actually, I guess I have a bad memory as well, because the second term escapes me. But it's basically an initial cost. Let's reverse those. For any given industry, there's an initial cost, and that initial cost alters based on the market. Let's say that I want to become an oil baron. Well, that's going to be basically impossible for me. Why? Because the initial cost to become an oil baron and trade in energy is incredibly high. Why? Because almost all those energy resources are already owned. Now, if we are Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood, the cost is very little. I need to only buy, at relatively low land costs, a small plot of land. So as you can see, in almost every single industry, the initial cost is very small, and the end cost is very large. Bill Gates was able to buy an initial cost at a very small amount. The famous, IT guys working out of their parents' basement. Or Google. But now, to compete with Apple and Google and Microsoft, the initial cost is immense. The best that you can hope for, which is what companies are doing, is to change the nature of the market and create an entirely new market. A good example of this is Google. Google could not compete with Microsoft and other retailer or service providers. So what did they do? They created a new market, which was an integrated information system, Android. So either you are left with creating new markets, which then will become clogged, as Android is now clogging its own market, becoming a monopoly. So we're endlessly creating more and more monopolies that endlessly dominate more and more of our lives, or we overthrow it and put an end to it. The second, so that's just the initial cost. The second is an economy of scale. Now, this is not a universal thing. There are also diseconomies of scale, but they are incredibly rare, and most of our life is by an economy of scale. The basic idea of an economy of scale is the more you have of something, the easier it is to have more of something. It is easier to have a large factory with each worker doing one aspect of one shoe in an assembly line than it is to have an Italian master individually make every part of your fine leather shoe. And almost every single industry has an economy of scale. Well, as a new industry starts, those who are either lucky or have the higher initial investment will continue to get more and more economies of scale. As they grow larger, it becomes easier to become larger. Thus, they become larger, which makes it easier to become larger, creating, in essence, in its very character, in its very nature, at its fundamental, radical root, the necessity of monopolies and the rise of monopolies in capital. The third point, some industries do not function either by this high initial cost of the purchase, of the buy-in, or economies of scale. And what are these? These are personal, interpersonal businesses. And in fact, a skill-based economy is the way that capitalist economists refer to it. It means that we'll all be friendly greeters at Disney and Walmart and what have you, and we'll all do business marketing or write novels or write, not necessarily novels, but more likely SEO, search engine or optimization codes, and we'll all be locked into dead-end partial jobs where we're not paid enough. Why? Paul Krugman's essay, Capitalist Economist, but one of the smart ones, Rise of the Robots. The more you own, the easier it is to own more. This is a self-evident truth. It is clear throughout history, and that is why there is no competition. That is why that despite us going to the mall and seeing dozens and dozens of different shops, almost all of them are owned by one or two financial investment banks. And in fact, these financial investment banks control all of our food source. We have about 3 soft drink companies. We have about 2 to 5 actual food companies. We in fact only have like maybe 5 or 6 oil companies, and they control everything through an oligopoly, which is monopolies that play nice with each other. It's a necessary condition of capitalism. It's right there in the founding principles. And as they get bigger, they can buy more. And sometimes what they buy more is politicians, which the politicians then let them get bigger. Same thing as an economy of scale. It's probably a great day when that first capitalist buys their first politician, and before they know it, they have an entire party following their goals. So yeah, that's why you don't really have any free choice, and that's why even though you seem to have choice, it's very unfulfilling.
You mentioned kind of like slave labor, right? Working for the corporations. Well, my definition of slave labor is slightly different. James, can I use you as an example?
Yeah.
Come up here. Where do you work, man?
Papa John.
And do you have health care? Do you have health insurance?
No, but not from them, but because my dad's company with West.
No. Just with your company. Do you have health insurance?
No.
Okay. Now, recently, Papa